Stathopoulos and Josh Phegan come together in an incredible podcast, Grow, Scale, Master.
An energetic approach to drive progress, master skills, build strengths and put the strategy back into rapid business and personal success.
Backed by real-world experience in rapid scaling to playing the long-term game of business, it's the story of all the lessons learned on the journey to mastery.
Be inspired, renew your energy and chase the future with Grow, Scale, Master.
Succession, entries and exits.
Big topic, Josh.
Con, this is not one that's often talked about, but it is a really important foundational concept.
Yes.
And, we see and I came from a really amazing regional market in Australia. And one of the things that I realized is that a lot of the people there are in a position that they're in a micro business where it's usually a key principal and maybe there's a salesperson.
Yes.
And sometimes there might even be 3 or 4 salespeople. But I would say that, if you could count on a hand the number of businesses that have probably got multiple salespeople in their teams, but literally there's lots and lots of agencies that are almost solo operators.
Yeah.
And it's nothing wrong with that. But the interesting conversation is that what's very, very clear is that no one's actually really thought about how to get the modeling right or the conversations right about what succession looks like inside of a business. Mm-hmm. How people enter a business and how they exit. Mm-hmm. So I thought this is a really important thing.
This is right up our alley, mate.
Well, the amazing thing, I'm working in your business and you said to me, hey, I need you to spend an hour and a half with our guys and we're doing a specific piece at the moment called Pathway to Partnership. Yeah. And as a part of that, I was like, okay, this is really good. And it said, look, one of the key things is about getting them to get to a certain level of revenue and helping them out how to build a team.
Yes.
So can you concentrate on how to help them to get revenue to grow and then at what point they scale and grow a team? And I just thought, hey, you've obviously worked this out, that it's a really important part for the long-term financial success of the people, but also too about the longevity and sustenance that you actually bring to a business is making sure you've got people that actually want to lead it.
Well, I think, yes. I think I observed some of the best businesses in the country, and a lot of my time, obviously, all my time in real estate's been at McGrath. So I watched John with his partners and Shane Smollen and how he designed his business. And, anyone worth having wants to know what's in it for them.
Yeah.
And I think we have failed as an industry to give people a very clear career development pathway. Mm-hmm. So essentially, I join leasing or I'm in PM, I become a prospector or an associate level 1 or maybe a level 4. I'm doing a bit of, a listing. I become a lead agent underneath someone. Then I start my own team. And then what? Mm-hmm. So for me, I looked at this and said, if we want to have longevity and we want to have a future succession plan, if we're going to build the biggest business that we possibly can, I would rather have people to do it with me rather than, try to keep the whole pot for myself, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that this is a big thing about building a much bigger business.
It is.
And the difference is that literally it's beyond you.
100%.
And I just think about that, this is important of some of the lessons that I've learned. So let's go through some of the lessons together and see how they work.
Yeah.
The first one is that a business must have a very clear valuation methodology.
Yes.
This has to sit inside of a partnership agreement.
Yes, it does.
Now, there's a couple of different ways to do it. It could be a mechanism that you clearly have a valuation methodology, aka
rent roll value.
Rent roll value, which is done at X multiplier.
Yep.
And sales value, which is done at X multiplier.
Yes.
And there's a formula for how that's calculated.
Yes.
Or that literally it's the best of 3 valuations, or off the back, there needs to be something around that. Where I see that this is really weak is that in most of the partnership agreements, when it goes wrong, that isn't in there.
Yeah, so here's the thing. Gary Keller from Keller Williams, who wrote The One Thing, I heard a podcast years ago, and I can't find it for the life of me, but he talked about for every agreement, you have to have a disagreement. So the agreement is 3.5 times on my rent roll multiple, 2 times sales valuation over 3 years. Okay? Really simple entry mechanism, but it has to be clearly stated for the exit mechanism because nothing lasts forever. We'd like to think it does. So to avoid turbulence later on, just make it really clear from day one.
And this is a great one to think about, is that inside of a business, we all know the success moments, but sometimes there are some unfortunate events that occur.
Yes.
Loss of a loved one, someone passes away in a business. And what you don't realize is that literally, so what happens to their shares?
Yeah.
So is that now all of a sudden they have a new husband or a new wife that you didn't get into business with day one that now owns their shares. So what actually happens when there's a forced sale? And so this is a really important conversation that, there needs to be really good quality legal framework for misadventure, for unexpected events, and for forced buyouts.
We've got that in our shareholders agreement, Josh. So we thought about this really. We took a long time to kind of formulate this, because you're right, these life events, particularly if someone goes through illness or divorce or whatever it might be. So one of our performance mechanisms is you have to write a certain amount of revenue, and in the event that you don't, you have to claw it back over 3 years. And the reason being is if you were to get sick or go through a divorce or go through something, mental health issue or whatever, it gives you the ability before, as a group, we could buy back your shares.
Sure.
Right, and we explain that. So whenever we're going through and we've got 9 partners with another cohort of 10 coming in and coming through, we explain everything up front to cut out the ambiguity for the future. The reason why we do that is people want to know what the rules of engagement are, and how do I sell out? And Con, if I decided after 3 years I want to sell out, when would I get my money? All of that stuff needs to be really well thought out.
Nick Dowling was, or still is, he's the chairman of Jealous Craig, but he was the master at this in bringing together probably one of the most prominent real estate businesses in Australia. And he was really clear about slow buy-ins and slow sell-downs.
Yes.
So our established talent is selling down over a period of time. Our establishing talent is buying in over a period of time. And what that allows for is maintenance of the quality of the talent, but also to capital transfers. And sometimes in a business, what you'll see is that some people build a lot of wealth in that, but no one else is prepared to buy in because it's so costly.
Correct.
Because of the value of a share.
Yes.
And this is where one of the great business mistakes is to sell percentages as opposed to shares.
Correct. It's like a stock price. It's very simple.
But that stock price has got to be accessible.
It does.
So one of the things that we learn, and I think that, Place Estate Agents and Damien Hackett has done a really good job of this, where he said, as an example, that he likes to have 10 million shares in a PTY limited company, and then he establishes a share price.
Correct.
So let's say, for example, the business was worth $10 million. Divide that by 10 million shares.
$1 a share.
Now it's $1 a share. Now, if the enterprise value of that business goes up to, say, 11 million, that now means that each share is $1.10.
That's right.
But people can track that shares will go up and down, and they're clear about that.
Correct.
But the problem is that literally when, respectfully, people that are new to business, they're like, well, what do you mean? I thought that my value always stayed at that level.
No.
It does go up and down over time. Because you lose a few property managements, you gain a couple, a salesperson
you acquire a business, there's more debt, whatever it might be.
And so this is a really interesting thing is that most people are charged around top line revenue.
Yes.
But they don't actually have a look at balance sheet events.
Correct. So because Damo's a good mate of ours, right? So we're exactly adopting the share price. So we've always gone with percentages and whatnot. And the thing that I've seen is with percentages, first of all, some people get they can get a
confused,
little confused, but also like, hang on, what do you mean it's only 5%? Because owning a small slice of a big pie sometimes is hard for people to actually kind of get their heads around it. But when they do, they do. The share price is a really good valuation. I mean, I got shares. I looked at a stock today. It's tripled in value in 6 months, and today it dropped 30%. So that's what happens. There are events, right?
And this is good because, like, if you got to train people beyond just top line revenue, and actually help them to understand what bottom line profit looks like.
Spot on.
And is this a reinvestment year or is this a profit year?
Correct.
And then outside of that, what are we doing for balance sheet growth? And I think that Phil Harris gave a great case study of that he felt in the first 4 or 5 years of running Harris that he wasn't that financially successful. But what he had kind of failed and now he realised is that a lot of the profit was being sucked out to pay down the debt on the rent rolls.
Correct.
And so now he's actually like, oh wow, like when I look at the balance sheet, it's significantly grown over time. But ultimately I didn't necessarily know that as a new business owner. So teaching people and providing information a way that they can get it. You got to give people that feeling of success, and then you got to give them the tools to kind of get there. How important is it for a bit of financial education along the way?
Oh, it's really important, mate, because I tell you what it is, and you're back onto what you were saying about the balance sheet growth or profit, or it's having really good, frequent partner meetings. And what are the goals of the business? So we've got one of our businesses is looking at an acquisition right now. Another one, we've just built a brand new office. So there's a fit out there. There's a capital cost. Our Parramatta office went through a complete fit out. We use cash for that. So it's actually explaining to people, okay, for the next 3 to 4 months, dividends are going to be impacted because we're reducing debt or we're looking at an acquisition. But if you don't explain the rules of engagement up front, then that's where you can potentially fall into, some cloudy kind of, situations. I think the best advice I could ever give anyone that looks at this is just be real, be upfront, work out what happens with the agreement, what happens with the disagreement, and how and what's the rhythm and the structure of dividends. So, for example, in our business, we pay dividends on sales monthly. We pay on property management quarterly. So it's pretty simple. And then every month they get a pack which has all the data on everything: profit and loss, net profit after tax, balance sheet, the entire bit, and then we actually explain what that means.
Experiences that rapidly shaped you.
So, Con, when I was a little kid, I was actually very shy.
No way.
And my mum was worried that I literally wasn't going to interact with many people because I'd heard, literally be spoken to, but literally don't say much. Like literally just be in the corner.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, okay, great. Be spoken and not heard. So what is it? What's the old saying?
Yeah, that's it. Be seen,
but not heard.
Correct.
And so I thought I'd be seen and not heard.
Yeah.
And she didn't realise I'd taken that to heart. So my mum, God bless her, amazing. She said to me, I'm going to go and introduce you to a lady by the name of Jan Skinner. And I was very lucky to meet Jan when I was like maybe in year 6.
Okay.
And she then made me go through a speech and drama degree.
Oh, wow.
And so I did that whole degree whilst I was going through school, and I actually came out a qualified speech and drama teacher. But in that, there was like the Eisteddfod, which is where you'd go to, right? Yeah. So I had to go and perform. And one of them was a radio announcing competition. So you had to go in and you had to like read the news.
Get out of here.
And then they would give you the audio on cassette tape, right?
Right.
And then literally then they would give that to you, and then a couple of days later they announce who the winner is. And I went to Miss Skinner and I said, here's my cassette tape. And she played it. She said, you won't win. I said, how do you know? She goes, because you weren't smiling. And I'm like, how would you know that? It's audio. You don't even see the video. And she says, because I can hear it in your voice.
Yeah.
And I just thought, wow, that is so powerful.
It's true.
What I learned. So the next year, I went to the Channel 9 or the Win TV TV news competition, right? It's like a little
like a journalist.
Yeah, right. So you actually go in and you have to read like 2 stories to see if you could win. And I remember what I'm going to do is when I get on, I'm going to smile like there's no tomorrow. I was so happy about telling people
Did you win?
The economic crisis of the world. But
whilst you're smiling.
But I won that. And Con, I won an inkjet printer.
Wow, that is phenomenal. Mate, one experience that's rapidly shaping me right now is how easy it is to get things so wrong. And, let's just look at vendor communication at the moment, right? The reason why, people don't respect or trust real estate agents is because we've given them the reason not to respect or trust us. So let's pick vendors, right? Frequency builds trust. It's amazing and I'm working on a project at the moment, quite a big one, right? I've been speaking to this vendor, and I don't list or sell, but this is the only one that I've been actually involved with. I speak to him every single day. And it could be as quick as, hey, Josh, I've got nothing to report on today.
Yes.
And he said to me, after like day 14, he goes, mate, I have never had this much communication from a real estate agent in my life.
Did you say this is also my first sale this year?
I said, it's my first listing. I need to sell it because everyone in the office is always going, Con lists it but can't sell it. That's at you, Riley Smith.
Something that's changing your view.
So there was a really phenomenal podcast. It was a Spartan podcast, and in the very early series, they actually interview this guy, and it's a fascinating story. And he is in a position that he's in like Lebanon at the time, and he has got a phenomenal business and is the equivalent of like a billionaire.
Wow.
And he gets kidnapped, and the government takes over his business. And
is this real?
Yeah, this is real.
This is real, okay.
And they put him on a plane and they send him to America.
What, the government did this?
Yeah.
Basically, they wanted his business.
Yeah, and so they put him to America and got rid of his citizenship, and he was never allowed back.
Right.
And he then tells the story how he then goes on to become a multimillionaire in America. It's the rag to riches story. And he says, once you have had everything in your life taken from you, that's when you truly start to learn what it takes to grow.
Yeah.
And he says the interesting thing is that every morning, the first thing that he does is he literally swings out of bed and he puts one foot and then the second foot down on the earth. And he says, thank God I have the opportunity of another day.
Wow.
And
That's
he says,
awesome.
so what will I do with this day?
Yeah.
And I
Not
just think
waste it.
about that presence and that capability.
Yeah.
But like really being appreciative for what it is that you've got, but like literally understanding that, hey, all the issues that you think you've got, they're not that big.
No, I agree, man.
And I think that this is that whole idea is that like literally have fun with it and learn how to really appreciate the good stuff.